And so we were basically, for that first session, the first tribe of companies, we were just trying to make sure that we could do this and do it well. And so we accepted 7 companies. We went through the program. We brought in mentors. We brought in speakers. We surrounded them with our network, which is pretty strong in Silicon Valley. And then at the end of the session, actually 6 of the 7 companies raised additional money. So it sort of gave us a stamp of legitimacy that we could run a successful program. But we realized that we wanted to be more focused than super broad. We wanted people to know us for something. And so we were looking at, in between the first and the second session, we were looking at different technologies we wanted to be able to really put our weight behind.
Right.
And we looked at drones. And drones, I believe, are really interesting. But 18 months ago, they were really popular, and that's when we were just making this decision. It was about February of 2013. And we were, but there are really only like 2 use cases for drones, and one's taco delivery. And so I didn't see it as like a platform. I didn't see it as like there's going to be tons of these. I saw it as
you
like.
say taco delivery?
Yeah, so like taco.
Tacos.
Tacos.
I understand. I can appreciate this.
Okay, yes. So it's a good use case. It's just they're very. I didn't see it as tons of use cases. I'm sure there are a lot of people who would debate me on that.
Quesadillas.
But at that time, I still think we're about 50 years out from that being like a hugely used thing. Then we looked at 3D printing. 3D printing is really interesting. I was very excited about it. There had already been a lot of 3D printing startups, though. There were, and it's very capital intensive to start one.
Right.
And we're still very interested. We've actually backed 2 3D printing companies through Boost at this point. But then we were looking at Bitcoin, and we were sort of thinking, well, there are only really 5 companies in this space, but there's tons of opportunity. It's basically revolutionizing the way the financial markets work. What happens, and so the 5 companies at the time were Mt. Gox, there was one called Bitfloor, Bitstamp, Coinbase, and BitPay. There might have been another one in that also, but those were the 5 that anyone would know in the space would even know. And we were thinking, well, what happens if we just double the population of Bitcoin companies? What happens if we create the Bitcoin mafia and just like throw it into the ecosystem and put this stamp of like, we think this is an industry on them? And so we decided that we were going to be backing Bitcoin companies. We announced it, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. So I had about 150 people reach out to me. So it was like investors, entrepreneurs, and enthusiasts reach out to me just to talk Bitcoin. It was like very 18 months ago, it was very popular to just talk Bitcoin. It still is actually, but 18 months ago it was like on another level. And so over the next month, I was not an expert on Bitcoin at the beginning of that month. Even though I had invested in Coinbase, I had some familiarity, but then I was definitely not an expert. When we made that announcement, 150 people reached out to me. I met with every single one over the course of about a month and a half. And at the end of that month and a half, I was an expert, definitely. Like I knew where everyone stood. I knew where all the opportunities were. I knew all that stuff. So that's how we got into Bitcoin. Was we really wanted, and also at that time it was a risk. We were the first investors to actually say like, we believe this is going to be an industry, and it could have gone either way. It could have gone like people just fizzled and forgot about it, but the community got really excited that an investor was actually trying to support their community, their ecosystem. So it ended up going really, really well, and we were able to sort of partner our Boost brand with Bitcoin as Bitcoin rose up. And about 6 weeks after, so Bitcoin, when we announced, was about $25 per Bitcoin, $25, $30 per Bitcoin. When 6 weeks later, it was at about $250 per Bitcoin. And so we're
not saying there's a correlation.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying anything, but it was very exciting to be a part of that quick ride.
Right.
And
you'd already like gone in.
We'd already gone in.
You had like street cred.
Yeah, it was like I had street cred because we were excited about it, and then it happened.
In before the rise.
If it had risen and then we did it, it was sort of like.
And that's what all those other like follow-on bandwagon people did.
Yeah, all the bandwagon people, but which we love. We love everyone who's in the ecosystem.
Because you guys are the same, and we like you as much.
No, and it's not really bandwagon. There is this initial resistance to like the Bitcoin concept because people are thinking magic money, that's stupid, crazy. There are some bad actors who have been in the industry, and so like they put a taint on the ecosystem. But then once you get past that, all of a sudden you see a lot of opportunity. And I feel like a lot of people went through that during that run-up. We were just lucky to do it before the run-up.
Yeah, I mean, the run-up, like, when the price of Bitcoin increases, definitely more people get interested in it. I mean, like, that's when I got interested, for sure, because Bitcoin rose to, like, $1,200, you know, way after that.
So then you bought?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't buy. I realized that I'd bought Bitcoins in 2011 or 2010.
No.
And then I forgot about them because magic internet money. It's for crazy people.
No.
And then they were in Mt. Gox. I was like, I'm pretty sure I have Bitcoins. And now they're like worth $1,300. I should go find them. Mm-hmm. Figured out my Mt. Gox password, got in there, had a decent number of numbers on the balance there. And then I couldn't get them out because Mt. Gox.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
So then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and get my money back from Bitcoin and go do Bitcoin companies.
Yeah,
so,
I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I'm excited about this.
Good. Well, now we've backed 27 Bitcoin companies, 67 companies overall, but 27 are Bitcoin. Over the next 3 years, we'll be backing 100 Bitcoin companies. That's sort of our pledge to the ecosystem. We're still very excited about it. We see a lot of innovation in this space, and I feel that we've been a big proponent and been able to sort of launch a lot of the early stage, cool, crazy ideas in the space.
Yeah, I mean,
like
you were saying that there were 5 like known Bitcoin companies in the beginning,
mm-hmm.
and now what? 2 years later?
2 years later, they're
you've
500 or something, and we've already done 27.
And you've done your part.
Yeah, and
which
we've
is
done
huge.
a big percentage of it.
So I think there's like not a lot of people that have invested in nearly, you know, the amount of Bitcoin companies you've invested in, and because you've been watching this industry for 2 years and somehow had the opportunity to start out with Coinbase, which is killing it right now.
Yeah, that was lucky.
But you did it.
Yeah,
and
I know.
And you jumped on it, and you kept going.
I haven't pulled the trigger on a lot of things, so I'm pretty happy about that one.
So I think you have an interesting perspective on the Bitcoin space. So what innovation have you kind of like seen so far that you've invested in? And then maybe, like, what are you looking for next? Like, maybe if someone out there is working on a company or they're thinking about doing it, what are the next innovative ideas for Bitcoin that you're looking for?
Yeah, so there's a lot of really interesting things. So first, we broke up all of the applications that we got into about 8 sectors inside of Bitcoin, and I hope I can list. Probably can't list them all, but the exchanges, payment processors, wallets, there's gambling, there's security, there's basically we broke them up. There's blockchain technologies, there's mining, and I think that was basically all of it. So,
media.
And media. Media was one of them because it's sort of an interesting thing. You need media to be able to support a sector. It's very fascinating. TechCrunch did it really, really well for early stage technology companies, and now Follow the Coin, ZapChain are all doing it very, very well. For CoinDesk are all doing it really well for Bitcoin. So that's sort of a fun thing. Growing within industry is really great. So right now, what's happening is there's a lot of money going into payment processors and exchanges, and it's because it's a very transactional business model. You make money when someone transacts into Bitcoin or comes out of Bitcoin. And so, and by the way, Coinbase I put under broker, which would be under exchanges. So that there are a bunch of those brokers being launched in different countries, and we have actually backed a lot of those. And the reason is you have to think about what Bitcoin enables in order to think about the opportunities, and what it really enables is cross-border transactions. Like the first real great use case is cross-border transactions. And currently, banks have a monopoly on sending money around the world. So if I want to send money to Korea or send money somewhere else, the bank can charge whatever they want. And it's a really interesting thing that happens. And Western Union and all those guys are a part of that because there are a lot of little pieces that are taken along the way. But really, the banks have this monopoly. It's similar to what I would liken it to is sort of like Skype. So originally, the telecom companies had a monopoly on long-distance calls. They were able to charge whatever they wanted per minute to be able to do a long-distance call anywhere in the world. And it was really expensive. It was like $5 per minute to call Nigeria or whatever. So what Skype did that was really fascinating was they said, hey, here's some technology. It's voice over IP, peer-to-peer, And if you're in the network, it's free. But if you call outside the network, you're going to have to pay something because we have to deal with the telecom companies.
Right.
Same thing's happening with Bitcoin right now. So for the banks used to be able to charge whatever they wanted. And now what's happening is Bitcoin, as an open source peer-to-peer technology, is saying if you're in the network, you can send this value around the world for free. But if you have to cash in, cash out at a brokerage or an exchange, we're going to charge you a percentage. And I think it's a very reasonable thing, and I think it's working really, really well. Suddenly, by setting up these brokerages in every country, we're creating a remittance network. Bitcoin itself is you're able to send value around the world, but you need these brokers in every country in order to be able to cash in and cash out.
Right.
And so, I think what Coinbase is doing, they just spread to Europe. We have one called CoinMotion that's also in Europe that covers a couple other countries. And it's really exciting because suddenly you're able to cash into a Coinbase account, send money to Europe, and then cash out. And that basically, that used to cost between 5 and 15% to be able to cash in, cash out. And suddenly you can do it for 1%, 2% of like the cash that you're sending. That's really exciting. And those margins are going to slim down even more and more. And suddenly we're going to be doing transactions on a global scale where we can like tour the world and just swipe credit cards everywhere. Yep. Or whatever the thing is, QR codes, or we'll figure out.
You'll just know. You'll be like, I want the sandwich, and then you paid for it.
And so the other thing that I'm still bullish on that, but I think it's sort of we're towards the end where like the companies that are going to take over that space are in the industry. And then payment processors, there's Snapcard, there's BitPay, there's Bitpagos does a little of both in Argentina. They're very transactional. They enable Bitcoin all over the place, and you're able to transact and buy things, which is really exciting. So we're interested in those things. We're interested in those because they're very clear business models, and if you have a unique way of getting into it, that is very valuable.
Right.
And in order to think Bitcoin, you need to be thinking globally.